So what I'm going to talk about is spawn sacks in Steelhead Alley. It's one of the most common bait presentations that we use other than skein and jig and maggot, and also flies. And one of the most common questions that I get from guys that are just getting into the sport is how to tie a spawn sack. And we're going to go ahead and demonstrate that today. And it's a pretty simple process, and it only takes a few materials that are readily available at your local bait store. And let's get started. So in order to tie one of these, which is considered a spawn sack, and you'll notice that inside of this particular sack there are what we call loose eggs, and we'll go ahead and tie one of these. This is a pink spawn sack with red cured eggs. So when you go to your local store and you're looking for the spawn sack netting, it looks something like this. And this here is chartreuse green, and they come in different sizes. I believe this one here today is they say is a 3x3. And then we also need we need some thread to tie off the top of the egg sack once we get done filling it with some eggs. And this is considered spider thread, and you can find that right next to the spawn sack mesh netting at your local bait store. So what we're going to do, I'm going to take some cured up single eggs here, and these eggs here are cured up in a mix of Braxifier from Potski and their latest product, which is called Fire Brine. Now, I do get a lot of questions about, well, how big of a bag do you need to run when you're targeting steelhead? And that's a good question, and it really varies. It could vary day by day, hour by hour, personal preference. But what I typically do is, for a small size spawn sack, I will use about 4 eggs inside of the spawn sack. For a medium, somewhere around 5 to 6, and for something that's a little bit larger, 7 and up. So what we do is we take these eggs, we set them down here in the center, and what a lot of guys will do is they'll set out some newspaper and they will do an assembly line. They'll have 15, 20, 30 of these mesh nets already laid out, and they'll go through and then they'll fill up the center of the mesh netting, and then they'll go back through and then tie them all. So now the way that I'm showing you today is pretty much the manual method. There are some machines out there that will allow you to tie them maybe a little bit faster, a little bit more efficient, but today I'm just going to go over the manual, cheap and easy way. I'm going to pick each corner up individually and bring these up to the center, like so. And then we'll do the top corner here, and then the bottom corner. And then we'll begin working our hands down until we get to the eggs themselves, like so. And we'll give it a couple twists, like that. And now in essence what we have is a spawn sack with a big tail on the end of it. And that's when the magic thread, or spider line, some people call it. Pull some of that out. I'll go ahead and give it a couple good wraps. And the benefit of using this type of thread is that when you pull it, it cinches everything tight, and then it breaks. And on the other side we'll do this other tag end here. Slowly pull it, and it breaks off the thread, and I'll clip it off. And there we have it. There's our spawn sack that we use in Steelhead Alley. The question that I get often is well, how do you attach this to your hook? Now I have a size 10 egg hook here today. It's pretty small, and I'll show you the way that I do it, and then I'll show you some a way that I've seen done in the past. What I typically do, I get close enough here, is I will just catch a few of the fibers of the mesh netting, and that's it. Like so. Just a few of the threads. Now I have seen people that will take the hook and bury it directly into the center of the sack like that, pretty much covering up all of the hook, the barb, and when you do get a bite, often you will notice that you're not getting hookups because the egg and the extra mesh netting is covering up the point of the hook, and you're not getting a good, hook set. So that's why I just usually nick the outside few fibers of the spawn sack, and then I can use that for my presentation. There are times that you have to give a bigger presentation to the fish because maybe the water is murky, or maybe you're not fishing for steelhead, maybe you're fishing for king salmon. And here is what I would consider a choker sack. It's probably got about 15 or more eggs in it, and it's pretty big. So you have to use a bigger hook than the size 10 hook. You probably want to use a bigger hook. There's one other key element that I personally do that I have a lot of confidence in, and for a large sack and even a small sack, we'll grab a small sack here. For the small sack, as I go in to pinch a few fibers, I will puncture one of the eggs. And what that in a sense will do is get it all gooey, and it releases the scent of one of those eggs, and releases the juices, and makes that egg sack really juicy, really wet. And as you're making your drifts, you'll see a significantly greater scent trail as you're making your drifts. And for me, that's worked really well, is to, as I pinch the first few fibers of the mesh netting, is to also puncture just one of the eggs in the spawn sack. So knowing that I do that all the time, I will always put in one additional egg. So if I want to run a egg sack that has 5 eggs in it, I will put one extra one in. So in essence, the spawn sack has 6 eggs. When I go to fish it, it's going to have 5 because I've punctured one of the eggs. Now with the spawn sack mesh netting, comes in a variety of colors. So I've got some pink here, which is pretty good. Sometimes peach is good. Sometimes blue. We've got orange and white. We've got pink. And of course, green's always a great one, chartreuse. And this is another kind of hot red. Now when you go to the stream, you should try to tie different colors, not all of one particular color. That way, if they're not biting on that color, then you have a backup plan. And also to tie different sizes of spawn sacks, so that if you notice that there's other people that are catching them on smaller size sacks, then you've got some with you. And if they're catching them on larger size sacks, then you've also got those with you too. So always want to try to be prepared. Thanks for watching. SteelheadAlleyAngler.com. Fish hard, fish often.